Have you ever reached out to your adult child and they didn't answer? Or maybe they read your text and didn't reply. Or you called and they sent you straight to voicemail, right? Or maybe they said something that absolutely broke your heart. Leave me alone. Or stop asking so many questions. And if you've ever experienced that, you know it doesn't just hurt, it feels like rejection. Now, here's what I've learned. When we feel rejected by someone, especially, someone we love, our natural instinct is to do one of three things. We'll either chase them, argue with them, or protect ourselves by pulling away too. Allow me to coach you for a few minutes, if you don't mind, because I don't think any of those responses usually bring us the relationship that we're hoping for. We have to learn that it's not just about distance. One of the hardest things about this prodigal journey is that we often make our child's distance mean something about us or something that it isn't. We start asking ourselves questions like, are they mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Do they even want me in their life? you know? Sometimes those questions come from love, but sometimes they come from fear. And fear has a way of convincing us that we have to do something right now. So we send another text and another, then we call, and we wonder why they're pulling away even more. Well, can I suggest something? Sometimes the harder we chase, the faster someone runs in the opposite direction. Have you noticed that? So let's talk about what chasing looks like. Now, when I say chasing, I'm not talking about loving your child. I'm talking about believing that if you can just have one more conversation, one more explanation, one more warning, one more lecture, one more emotional plea, then everything will finally change. Most of us done it. Not because we're trying to control our child, but because we're terrified of losing them. Fear has a way of making us believe that more words equal more influence, but that's not always true. Sometimes wisdom knows when enough has been said. Love doesn't always mean more words. One of the greatest lessons I've had to learn is that love isn't always loud. Sometimes, like the Bible says, love is patient. Sometimes love is praying. Sometimes love is giving someone room to experience the consequences of their own choices without rescuing them from every uncomfortable moment. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop trying to do what only God can do. Because here's the truth. You cannot argue someone into spiritual maturity. You cannot lecture them into wisdom. You cannot force another adult to receive what they're not ready to hear. Only God can change a heart. Now, there are some things that you can do instead. So, what do you do when your adult child pushes you away? Well, first, don't panic. Distance today doesn't mean distance forever. Relationships have seasons. Okay, there's a time and a place. There's a season for everything, right? Okay. Second, keep the door open without forcing it open. What do I mean? There's a difference. You might send a simple text that says, I'm thinking about you and I love you. And that's it. No lecture, no guilt, no pressure, just love. Third, Use the space to strengthen your own walk with God. One of the biggest mistakes we make is allowing our child's silence to become the loudest voice in the room, the loudest voice in our lives. Instead, let God's voice become louder than your fears. Now, don't let distance define the relationship. Now, I've learned something. Sometimes a season of distance makes us forget everything that came before it, right? We start believing this is how it's always going to be, but that's not necessarily true. Don't let today's distance convince you that tomorrow has already been written. God is still working, even when you can't see Him working, even when your child isn't talking, even when you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. God has access to places that you don't. So, if your adult child has been pushing you away, I know how deeply it hurts. But I also want you to remember someone needing space doesn't always mean they stop loving you. And even if your relationship feels strained today, God is still able to restore what feels broken. So keep loving and praying, keep living, and leave the door open. Trust God with the timing. And when your child is ready to walk through that door, I pray they find a parent whose heart has remained full of grace and wisdom and hope. Because that's the kind of parent God is shaping you to become.